fact of the matter is, Albert, I have devoted my unfortunate life to two arts, the military and the potatory. As you may have noticed, most of the miserable creatures on the wrong side of a bar adopt one of two reprehensible courses. Either they treat drinking as though the aim of blending liquids were to imitate some French chef's fiddle-faddle, a dash of bitters, a squirt of orange, an olive, cherry, or onion wrenched from its proper place in the salad bowl, a twist of lemon peel, sprig of mint, or lump of sugar, and an eyedropper full of whiskey, or else they embrace the opposite extreme of vulgarity, and gulp whatever rot gut is thrust at them to addle their undiscerning brains and atrophy their undiscriminating palates. Either practice is foreign to my nature and philosophy. I believe the happiest combinations of liquors are simple ones, containing no more than two ingredients, each of which should be noble, that is to say, drinkable in its own right. He raised his fresh glass, containing brandy and arrack. No doubt you have observed a catholicity in my taste. I range through the whole gamut from usquebaugh to sake, though during the present conflict, for obvious patriotic reasons, I cross vodka from my list, while as a man born south of the Mason-Dixon line, sir, I leave gin to niggers. I must say, though somewhat startled by his manner of imbibing, I was inclined to like General Thario, but I was impatient to discuss the matter of a contract for consolidated pemmican. Every time I attempted to bring the subject round to it, he waved me grandly aside. "Dinner," he confirmed, when the waiters brought in their trays. "Yes, no drink is complete without a little bit of the right food to garnish it. Eating in moderation I approve of, but mark my words, Albert, the man who takes a meal on an empty stomach is digging his grave with his teeth." If he would not talk business, I could only hope his amiability would carry over till I saw him again in his office tomorrow. I settled down as far as I could, simply to enjoy his company. You may have been surprised at my referring to my life as unfortunate, Albert, but it is a judicious adjective. Vilely unfortunate. I come of a military family, you know. You will find footnotes mentioning the Tharios in the history of every war this country has had. He finished what was in his glass. My misfortunes, like Tristram's shandies, began before my birth, and in the same way, exactly the same way. My father was a scholar and a gentleman, who dreamed his life away over the campaigns of the great captains, instead of attempting to become a great captain himself. I do not condemn him for this. The organization of the army is such as to encourage impracticality and inadvertence, but the consequences were unfortunate for me. He named me after his favorite heroes: Stuart, Hannibal, Ireton, Thario, and so aloof was he from the vulgarities of everyday life that it was not until my monogram was ordered painted upon my first piece of luggage that the unfortunate combination of my initials was noted. Hannibal and Ireton promptly suppressed in the interests of decency. Nevertheless, at West Point my surname was twisted by fellow classmates into Lothario, giving it a connotation quite foreign to my nature. I lived down both vexations only to encounter a third. Though Ireton remained successfully concealed, the Hannibal leaked out, and when, during the World War, I had the misfortune to lead a company which was decimated, his hand strayed to the ribbons on his chest. Behind my back, the enlisted men called me Cannibal Thario. He began discussing another drink. Of one thing I'm resolved. My son shall not suffer as I have suffered. I did not send him to West Point so he might win decorations on the field of valor and then be shunted off to sit behind an unsoldierly desk. I broke with tradition when I kept him from a military career, quite on purpose, just as I was thinking of his welfare, and not some silly foible of my own when I called him by the simplest name I could find. "What is your son's name?" I was constrained to ask. George, he answered proudly. George Thario. There is no nickname for George, as far as I know. And he's not in the army now? I queried, more in politeness than interest. No, and I don't intend he shall be. The general's pink face grew pinker with his vehemence. Albert, there are plenty of dunderheads and duffers like me in the country who are good for nothing better than cannon fodder. Let them go and be killed. I'm willing enough. Only an idiotic general staff has booted me into the quartermaster corps, for which I am no more fitted than to run an academy for lady marines. But I'm not willing for a fine, sensitive boy, a talented musician like George, to suffer the harsh brutalities of a training camp and battlefield. The draft, I began tentatively. If George had a civilian position in an essential industry, say one holding a contract with the army for badly needed field rations. I should like to meet your son, I said. I have been looking around for some time for a reliable manager. George might consider it. General Thario squinted his glass against the light. I'll have him stop by your hotel tomorrow. The little radio behind the bar, which had been mumbling to itself for hours, spoke loudly. We interrupt this program to bring you a news flash. IRE has declared war on the Soviet Union. I repeat, war has been declared on the Union of Soviet Republics by IRE. Keep tuned to this station for further details. We return you now to our regular program. There was an absent pattering of applause, and General Thario stood up gravely, glass in hand. Gallant little IRE, or, if I may be permitted once, the indulgence of using the good old name we know and love so well, brave old Ireland. When the world was at war, despite every provocation, she stayed peaceful. Now that the world is disgracefully pacific, and you have all heard foreign ministers unanimously declaring their countries neutral, so fast did they rush to the microphones that they were still panting when they went on the air. When the whole world was cautious, Ireland, true to her traditions, joined the just cause. Gentlemen, I give you our fighting ally, IRE. Departing from his usual custom, he drank the toast in one gulp, but no one else in the room paid any attention. I considered this lack of enthusiasm for a courageous gesture quite unworthy, and meditated for a moment on the insensitivity into which our people seemed to have sunk. As the evening went on, the general grew more and more affable, and, if possible, less and less reticent. He had, he assured me, been the constant victim either of men or of circumstances. At the military academy he had trained for the cavalry, only to find himself assigned to the tank corps. He had reconciled himself, pursued his duties with zeal, and was shunted off to the infantry, where, swallowing chagrin, he had led his men bravely into a crossfire from machine guns. For this he got innumerable decorations and a transfer to the quartermaster's department. His marriage to the daughter of an influential politician should have assured peacetime promotion, but the nuptials coincided with an election depriving the family's party of power. Now another war had come, and he was a mere brigadier pigeonholed in an unimportant office, with juniors broadly hinting at his retirement, while classmates were leading divisions and even army corps to glorious victory on the field of battle. At least, they would have been leading them to glorious victory if there had been any action at all. "Invade!" insisted General Thario, becoming sufficiently stirred by his fervor to lapse into sober incoherence. "Invade them before they invade us. Aircraft out. Gentlemen's agreement. Quite understand. Well, landing barges. Bering Sea. Strike south. Shuttle transports. Drive left wing. Trans-Siberian. Hold an operation by right and center. ABC." No doubt it was a pity he was deprived of the opportunity to try these tactics. I was one of the few who had not become a military theoretician upon the outbreak of the war, but to my lay mind his plan sounded feasible.